Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's conversation or topic is one that we've been getting a lot of questions about. The main question is now a good time to remodel? We're going to focus a little bit on some industry outlook information and trends that we've experienced. Certainly, these past couple of years have presented some challenges for not just us, but everyone in the industry, but also opportunities for improvement. And in turn, a way for us to consistently, again, deliver a quality experience for our clients. So I thank you for joining us today. If you have a chance to find a nice spot to settle in with us, maybe grab a drink, this should be a fun conversation. Let's start by introducing our panelists today. Joining us today is Lynn Dean. Lynn Dean is one of our design build consultants here at Hartman Baldwin. And for all of you out there who may not be familiar, a design build consultant is a person who's in the sort of the front line, so to speak, of our company. They work closely with our design department. They're the folks that go out and meet with our prospective clients, talk about our process, get to hear your ideas, talk to you about our process and see if we're a good fit in terms of working together. Lynn also has a fun little unique perspective in the sense that she was a past client of ours. So we're very glad to have her here with us tonight because not only does she go out there and talk to folks all the time, but she has that unique experience of being a client. Thanks for joining us, Lynn.
Oh, thanks for having me. I have to say that maybe like several of you out there, I was unfamiliar with the concept of design build, and we had bought a labor of love home 20 years ago, 1912 Craftsman, and after a few missteps working with different contractors, had received a postcard in the mail one day, and it was a Hartman Baldwin postcard. And I just took one look at it, and I just said to my husband, honey, when we're ready for that final push on the home, we're going to be taking a look at Hartman Baldwin. And the rest was history.
Well, it's awesome. And, we're going to get into the process a little bit later in this conversation. And it'll be really fun to hear your perspective as a client throughout this whole thing. Because, of course, as we work on the work, right, the building and the remodeling and all of that, the client is really at the center of it all. That is our primary focus throughout all our work. And what better person to chime in on this particular subject than our next panelist, Bill Jetson, who's one of our architects. He's a LEED accredited professional. Has been with Hartman Baldwin, over 15 years, I think. We've been working together a long time, huh, Bill?
Yeah, it goes fast though.
It really does.
Everybody for joining us tonight.
Yeah, and if anyone happens to, another little fun fact about Bill is you may recognize him. For all of you who have joined us on other webinars, he's sort of the star of most of our webinars and stuff that we've put on our YouTube channel. If you haven't gotten a chance to go and check it out, I certainly encourage you to do so. There's a lot of fun content on there that I think is great information, especially if you're contemplating a large-scale renovation or maybe a custom-built project. A lot of good information out there. Thank you so much for joining us today, Bill. I know you're busy, and I'm really grateful that you're sharing your time.
My pleasure. I'm happy to be here.
Absolutely. And of course, maybe he doesn't need an introduction, but I'll introduce him anyway. He's the founder of Hartman Baldwin, Bill Baldwin. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Bill comes to us, obviously, not only did he help establish Hartman Baldwin, but he also comes to us with over 40 years of construction experience. Hate to date you that like that, but certainly, a wealth of knowledge that you bring to the table, and certainly, especially with tonight's topic, valuable to have you on tonight.
Well, it was arduous starting this firm 40 years ago when I was in first grade, but I managed to get through that.
Right.
I'm very happy to be here. It's a really interesting conversation, and look forward to diving into it. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. And I am going to be leading the conversation tonight. My name is Carla Rodriguez. I'm the marketing director for Hartman Baldwin. I've been fortunate to have been a part of Hartman Baldwin for a very long time. I have gotten to see a lot of beautiful projects being built. I get to be a part of a wonderful, passionate team of people who are dedicated to putting on some compelling content, kind of like tonight, getting you guys the information that you need to feel better about moving forward with your project. So before we dig into our topic tonight, I do want to tell you a little bit about who we are in terms of what we do, because some of you out there may not be that familiar with Hartman Baldwin. We're what you call a true design build firm. We've been in business for over 40 years. We primarily focus on residential remodeling and building. It's not our only area of focus, but it is our primary focus. And that saying that people say about stick to what you're good at, that's essentially what we're doing here. We're experts at residential remodeling and building, and that is what we like to focus our energy on. We bring our architecture and construction services and interior design services to all of our projects, down to furnishings if you need that level of service. We've also been very fortunate to be recognized both locally and nationally for our design. So something we're quite proud of. One project in particular that was recently awarded a beautiful design award, the Chrysalis Award, was the Miramonte residence, which happens to be Lynn Dean's home. So we're very proud of that. Congratulations, Lynn. It was wonderful. It's a beautiful project. And for anyone out there who'd like to check it out, we do have that spotlight on our YouTube channel. It walks you through from the very beginning, like Lynn mentioned, how they were considering maybe different avenues to take on this project, how they found us, and then how we walk them through each step of the way there.
And if you do a award-winning project with us, we don't demand that you have to work with us. Lynn did so voluntarily.
Right, that's just an added perk, right? Sure.
And she's not just working off her project now either. She actually.
Yeah, that's right. And along with the design awards, of course, one specific award that we all collectively are so proud of is an award we call the Guild Master Award. And for all of you out there who may not be familiar, is an award that is given to companies like ours, builders especially, who have consistently delivered high quality experience. And how do we do that? Every client is now surveyed at specific milestone points throughout their experience. And Guild Quality is a third-party surveying company who will contact the client and get their honest feedback and then publish those results. So you get to hear all of it, the good, the bad, where we could improve. And fortunately for us, again, it takes a lot of effort. We have been awarded the Guild Master Award consistently every year since 2010. Not easy to do, but something we're very proud of. And how do we do that? The way we do that, or the heart of the operation, is the folks, the people who do all the work. It's a great army of people that have varied talents. We have architects, designers, interior designers, project managers, estimators, and everyone in between, along with a small little army of administrative staff that make everything move efficiently throughout the process.
I was going to say, there's a great Satchel Paige line: none of us is as smart as all of us. And that's certainly enforced in our company. We're a very team-oriented company from top to bottom, not so hierarchical as we are team-based.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I love to point out this quote that we have here that, and I've heard you say this many a time, right? Is we're in a people business, but we also happen to build remarkable things. And I just love that because it very succinctly states kind of what our mission is, right? At what is at the core of what our focus is. Let's dig in. Let's see if we can get started here and talk a little bit about, again, how we've gotten here. One of the questions that we get a lot is, especially right now, is now a good time to remodel? So I think it's worth for us to go through and sort of look at what got us here. How did we get here? So we're going to be focusing on a few different things today that we're going to dig in a little deeper as we move through the presentation. Things like the world shutting down and the supply chain disruption associated with that. How the jurisdictional departments and municipalities, how they were affected. Of course, something that we've all sort of experienced it on varying sides is the interest, the spike in interest in remodeling and building, and what has that done to our industry and us specifically. And then, of course, a very important topic that again directly relates back to that question is what are we looking at when it comes to inflation or price volatility? Is how are we looking at that? What are we doing in terms of getting information, the right information to our clients? How do we relate that back to them? And the way we do that is by focusing on the issue. So let's start with that first topic, the issue of supply chain disruption. I remember, just to go back a little bit, right? The week of leading up to March 19th, 2020, and how confusing all of that was for all of us. I know for us, Bill Baldwin, you had been sort of ringing that bell for us as a company pretty early on. I think even as early as January, we were watching the news and you were kind of letting us know, hey guys, I think there's something that we need to be watching here. We were watching the news very closely. And I don't know if maybe you can tell us a little bit about leading up to that moment.
Yeah, well, part of it was I have always been concerned that viruses, we worry about so many different things in the world, but from the pandemic in 1918, that viruses circle back and forth. So I've always kind of kept a beat on it. And then also being kind of an international news junkie, when it first spiked up, it was interesting to see it just start to smolder and then fairly quickly and unfortunately realize what was coming our way. Although I think it's still overwhelmed. No matter how early you thought what was going to happen, it was still overwhelming.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. I think one of the things that we all collectively sort of held our breath and wondered, okay, what's going to happen next? How far is this ripple effect going to go? We didn't quite know at that time, but certainly as things started shutting down, that's where we first started feeling those ripples. Is that right, Bill?
Yeah, and I think that a term that term of the year in 2020 was essential business, right? And when we went home and we're trying to understand, are we essential? Who is essential? Construction, obviously, once we, kind of got our feet under us, turned out to be an essential business. And I'm sure if we were in the middle of your kitchen remodel and had your kitchen gone and hadn't put it back yet, that's pretty essential.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, when we start to talk about this idea of supply chain issues, that idea of essential businesses, what's essential, what isn't, maybe construction is essential, but is what's feeding construction is essential. And, you think about our supplies are coming from all over the country, some even from like lumber, maybe from Canada. We had like an uneven way, right? We all read about this. Certain states were shutting down more than others.
Right.
Some had no essential businesses. Some had very wide range of essential businesses. So it was all very, very confusing. And that's when we started to see these little blips and hiccups starting to show up in the supply chain pretty early,
Yeah, lumber was and still remains probably the most volatile one. And, the mills shut down. And there was this belief that there was enough stock out there that would probably hold through everybody's probably over-optimistic sense of how long the pandemic would last. And then everybody was stuck at home in the do-it-yourself market. Everybody was running down to Home Depots and gathering up lumber. So all the kind of stock that was around at large warehouses got swallowed up and the mills weren't producing it. So there was all this interest in the home and interest in getting something done and no production behind it, which was a double whammy in terms of trying to get lumber out and accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of the things that was kind of surprising too during that time is as the inventory was sold off the shelves too, and we started seeing that things weren't getting replaced right away, we also started hearing about, products that required multiple parts from different countries just not showing up anymore, or we just could not get a clear answer as to when they were going to be available, which presented a very unique challenge for us as we obviously love to communicate with our clients. That's the cornerstone of what we do. And that became a bit of a challenge. Can you guys talk a little bit about where that was maybe the most hit.
Sure. I mean, well, I can a little bit.
Yeah.
The computer chips, of course, were manufactured largely coming from China. And that was challenging, as well as appliances. If you look at Bosch or Miele, those are German manufactured. That country shut down several times throughout the pandemic. And so, of course, you'll get delays that way. I think the people that were probably making out the best there were the shipping container companies, they're the ones that were earning all the profits there. But the main thing really was for us to just start communicating that with our clients and start pivoting the way they started thinking about how to get your selections out to you.
Yeah, it was interesting because when we first shut down, we were still able to get appliances. And I don't know, I'm not in the appliance business, but I have a feeling that, like a lot of people, Bill just mentioned it, we were optimistic on how long this was going to last. And there was a certain amount of inventory there that started to go. We were still able to get dishwashers, refrigerators, and then all of a sudden that stopped. And I think they were caught a little bit unawares of, hey, we have products from Brazil and China and Germany. And if one of those falls out, the whole supply chain, right? That's what we're talking about. The whole supply chain dropped out. So then we saw like that's probably going to be about 4 months. And then 4 months would come and they'd say next month, 5 months, next month, 6 months, 7 months. And so that became very hard to plan until finally they said, okay, 12 months. Appliances now are 12 months out, generally speaking. Wow, okay, what does that mean? Well, we'll get into that a little bit later, but another wrinkle came in where people were buying appliance packages knowing 12 months. And then after 6 or 7 months, they'd say, oh, your refrigerator is ready. Well, what about everything else? It's not, but if you want your refrigerator, come and get it. Well, where do we put that? And we haven't started the project. It started to get all sorts of wrinkles. And we're going to get to how we solve for you and work through it. But it was certainly challenging, both in terms of not getting product and not having good communication on when we could expect it. So planning became very difficult.
It was also an interesting wrinkle in a way. I found it perversely reaffirming that, and Carla was mentioning it earlier, that there's such an incestuous nature in all these products we have because they're kind of put together from countries all over the world. India, which it had a tremendous amount of COVID shutdown, experienced dire results from it. They shut down for quite some time. And there would be generators that we're getting that are American generators for a backyard, and a bunch of the parts are made in China, but the pistons alone are made in India. And that one piece of it is what held it up. The reaffirming part is it just, as much as we talk about international conflict, we do seem to be very dependent on one another in this world from country to country. But It's just fascinating to realize that nothing is exactly where you think it's from.
Yeah.
It's from
That's a great point. That's a great point. I think that is one thing that we all collectively sort of realize during this time is how interconnected we all really are. We thought, we're in Southern California, there shouldn't be any problem in us getting any of this stuff. And not only did we find those things happening quite challenging, but what was to the point that Bill Judson was making, it sounded like the folks on that end didn't quite really know what was going on either. They were trying to figure it out as well. So obviously presenting a bit of a challenge for us in trying to anticipate these things for our clients. It was a bit of a kind of catching up as you went along. But Len, I think you can speak to this a little bit, right? As a client, there are times, who doesn't like to deliver good news? But what really makes the difference is how early people are able to deliver the not so good news. Because I think that's what really makes a difference as well as a client, right? To know what's up ahead.
100%. And that's the difference I saw right away when we started working with Hartman Baldwin. I felt that Hartman Baldwin was our partners from the beginning, and that's the service that I like to provide to the client myself. It was perfect modeling, I have to say, and I just believe in transparency across the board.
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, a good point, Carla. None of us were, well, I don't think anybody in here is alive at the 1918, the last pandemic we had. So when it came,
right? Yeah.
I know for myself, I almost was in denial, but when it came, no one knew what to do. I think no one around that I ran into really know what to do. And I think one of the ones that really started to become aware, painfully aware, was with the cities, municipalities, the jurisdictions that they had to shut down as well. They had to send everybody home, but yet how do we keep things moving ahead? And so they've taken a lot of time to try to reevaluate that, try to go completely virtual, which is something that they resisted. Frankly, a lot of jurisdictions resisted for a long time, to go completely virtual and allow submission of digital plans and things like that. And so they had a lot of catching up to do, and we saw what normally may take an approval of 4 to 6 weeks go to 6 to 8 months, and in some jurisdictions out 12 months. So you can imagine what that does to a project, to your psyche, and to an understanding of where we're at when we're sort of having a dark time, just waiting for our jurisdiction to get approval of the plans.
Well, and I think also I think it also might be surprised them as well a little bit as to how steep of a spike in interest there was in remodeling and building. I think, we all figured that there was going to be some interest, and that we figured the DIY market was definitely going to spend a lot more time fixing up their homes. And but what we ended up finding as well is that a lot of the folks that were coming to us were looking for additional space that wasn't there before, expansions, larger projects, which then in turn created a very new challenge for these bureaucracies. Right now they have an influx of plans that require real input, and what we were used to before, right, being able to just go up to a counter and ask our questions and maybe get the information that way. Now these sort of checkpoints for us took a lot longer, and hopefully, I think from what it sounds like, things are improving.
Yeah,
they are. It's interesting. There's kind of two aspects to it. One, when they went virtual, and the good news on this is when it went virtual and you lacked the contact, it came down to you didn't want to go through a bunch of steps in the process because you didn't have anybody to talk to. So those of us who do very detailed, high quality plans are still going to be in that system a shorter amount of time. However, I think one of our huge competitive advantages in our firm is that we have great reputations with all the building departments, and we're teammates. We go in there and sit with them and work these things through. Some people have kind of an adversarial relationship with them. We never think that's a good idea, and we have great relationships. Well, that human contact, that in-person thing was taken away from us when it went virtual. We're now starting to see that come back. But in the absence of that, what you had to count on was that you had a really good set of plans in there that wouldn't sit there for too long. But it did. It drug out, and by a magnitude that was hard to imagine there for a while. It is getting better.
Yeah, and certainly what is surprising to maybe a lot of us is that it took something like a little pandemic to have some of the cities start adopting things like electronic submissions, which I know is a great advantage to a lot of us in the industry now, because again, it's a hybrid approach, and I think a lot of people out there are now adopting this sort of hybrid approach, where before it was very specific. You come in with your plan, there's a certain process for submittal, that now there's different avenues of being able to get that information in front of them. And like to Bill's point, right, the better the quality of those plans, the more detail, more information that you have there, and it's in a format that is easy for them to understand, it makes the process far more efficient and easy to get through. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. And I think you're understanding the culture and specificity of one city versus another, and what the requirements are and what that flavor is also weighs huge in this to help minimize some of those times. So we did fairly well navigating it, but it was very tough.
Absolutely. Which brings us to another, the next slide talks specifically about price volatility. And when we talk about how clients are asking us, hey, is now a good time to remodel? This is really just one of those main touch points or hot button issues that people are asking about. is this a good time to remodel? What am I going to be facing here? We keep hearing all these things about, prices going up here and delays here. And so one of the things that we've been keeping our eye on, obviously, is that we work closely with our estimation department in getting that information. I mean, just recently, we had a nice big full-bodied meeting about everything that's involved with this. But I'd like to hear from maybe Bill Judson about, how are your clients talking to you about this? What is the main concern that they've got right now regarding this topic?
Yeah, it's in the paper, right? This idea of inflation and price volatility, and certainly the construction industry, our industry, gets hit a lot harder with the price volatility. And then in the mix of all that was in a lot of ways this sort of perfect storm, right? When we shut down in March, if you'd have told me the amount of interest in remodeling and building that we would see over the past 2 years, I would have told you were crazy. So we saw, when we shut down, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to sit here until we can, open back up. But no, people, I think, were sitting around in their homes and saying, now may be the time, right? And so now we started to see this increase in demand. We saw the stock market, after that initial plunge, climb right back up and exceed where it was before. We had obviously record low interest rates. Remarkably, our real estate values in Southern California have continued to come up. So all of those things prompted this, this surge in demand for building and remodeling. All while we just went through the idea of the supply chain tightening. So Econ 101, right? Our supply is down, our demand is up. So that's where we're seeing the price volatility come into play. Now, the key is how we manage that and how we anticipate it and make sure that we're not falling behind or missing some opportunities that we may have as we're going through there. But yeah, it's a very big concern right now. And I have to say, if you're interested, you can learn a little bit more about our process, but we do pricing very early on in your project and then right before construction. And it has gone up more than I've seen historically, between those two times, but not as much as I thought, not as much as you hear the hype in the media or what you're reading, because that's what sells. So
that's right. I think that's very well said. I think one of the things, and part of the reason why we're having this conversation today, is because what you hear on TV can be a little overwhelming, and it can maybe dampen your dreams a little bit about embarking on your dream home transformation. But like Bill said, one of the things that we're focusing on as well with our clients is, as we're looking at this price volatility, as we're looking at pricing and things changing, our job is also to make sure we're communicating not just the accurate cost information, by the piece and product and all that, but the total project cost that you're going to be anticipating here for your project. Personally, I talk to so many folks, and I hear, if I'm lucky enough, I'm talking to them at the very beginning when they're just thinking about an idea. They have an idea to work on their home. There are times when I talk to folks who are a little bit further along, maybe in their remodeling or building journey. And it's a little bit sort of figure it out as we go. And I think especially right now, with so much uncertainty in terms of things moving, it's even more critical to have that timely cost information, as well as a total project cost view of what your project truly is.
That's right, Carla. And I think that's one reason why we chose, to really talk about volatility here, maybe not so much inflation, because we saw lumber go up, Bill, what, 300% or something like that. It came down to 230. Yeah, and then back up and back down. So it's not all up, we're kind of bouncing around here, at least, in the effects of our industry.
And we have had pretty good luck in mitigating a little bit of that, in that if you just sit in a reactive spot and just go down and order your lumber and you go, oh my God, it's up 200%, then you're in a purely reactive position. we have great relationships with all the vendors. And so we've been able to ask questions upstream and see, they're still seeing trends kind of coming at us. And so we've locked down some prices and made some deals with our vendors that have helped kind of soften the curve of that. So we've maybe guessed right a couple of times and also have gotten really good lead information from them that has helped soften the spikes and troughs on it too, to get better pricing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to talk about this a little bit longer, but having the team, right, where we've got an estimator that's what he can do is focus on that. Where is pricing up to the minute and not be, like Bill was just mentioning, sort of just a victim of whatever it is in the moment. We can anticipate that.
Mhm. Very well said. And I think it really speaks to, I think, the professionalism of it, right? It's not easy to stay on top of this information. It certainly takes a certain level of expertise to know what questions to ask, to know what we need to anticipate, because we know what we are, what our promise is to our clients in terms of the experience and what we want for. In terms of the collaboration, we want it to be a good one. We want it to be a fun experience, even with everything feeling maybe a little bit in flux. We want to make sure we're able to provide them with a clear view of how to get from, again, the dream to the reality and be in their home. And how do we do that? What did we learn from paying attention to all of this and getting this information is that just like pre-pandemic, trusting the process is how we ensure success. It works. It works. You just need to stick to it. It's very tempting, especially when you hear so many competing voices, to cut corners, to potentially skip a step. But we're here to tell you, if you are planning on embarking on a fairly large scale remodel or a custom build project, it is absolutely critical to follow these steps. Even if you decide to maybe take this on yourself and become your own sort of design builder, this particular process is just a sure way to have success. And like Bill said, we do have a webinar on our YouTube channel that outlines and goes much deeper into how we walk people through our design build process. We apply this to all of our work, from the smallest scale work all the way up to big custom built homes. And I'd love to, let's go to the next slide so we can start talking a little bit about how it starts. And Bill, I'd love, Bill Judson, sorry, I forget we got two Bills on our talk today, but Bill Judson, maybe you can talk to us about, what does a client expect from that first conceptual design phase?
In a nutshell, when we talk about this idea of conceptual design, what we're really doing is trying to find the right solution for you. Okay. Now, the great thing about working with a design build firm is the right solution isn't only just design, because you need to be able to pay for that as well. So we need to look at design and costs early on, because if we can marry those two together, balancing them out, that's where we're going to have success, because we can design a beautiful solution for you, but if it's 5 times what you want to spend on this particular project, what's the point, And so we've talked about, that takes a little time working through design and pricing and everything. And we're talking about price volatility, right? Things going up. We're talking about long lead times. So in a way, we want to work through the design and talk to you about costs, but we're also going to go through, as we're going through the process, especially now, given the current conditions, where we may say, hey guys, let's take a little break. Let's look at how the pricing is coming in, right? Do some, and are we seeing spikes? Are we still good? Because that may give us time to kind of readjust. If we're seeing a dip in pricing, you may say, hey, let's try for a little bit more. If we're seeing an increase in pricing, that may readjust what you want to do. So all the time, we're just trying to find the right solution for you, both from a design and cost point of view.
A great point. And Lynn, I'd love to hear from you, because I know, having gone through it, right? I think it's, again, conceptual design is one of those things where folks may be tempted to sort of skip over that and go straight into the construction documents and just make specific selections. But tell me a little bit about what that time was like for you, when we were working with you, that conceptual design phase?
Yes, well, that is very much the investigative process. And for us, we had definitely a larger scope in mind to begin with, and we had a growing family. And if you want to also going into our YouTube channel, tune into the estimation process too, because part of the role with Hartman Baldwin and for us to help with you is to educate you on what it really means when you are making changes within, moving walls, and how that impacts your estimate. So there was an education process that we really learned a lot from Hartman Baldwin about. And in the end, we're, finally crafted the right project for us. And so some of that could also move to Bill's point, just given the volatility the way it is today too. With pricing. So we really looked to Hartman Baldwin to be those consultants for us. It became a very consultative type of, meeting style.
Mhm.
And I know we wouldn't have gotten that just by working with an architect. And so now sitting with clients, I love being in that role myself. I can pull from my experience. I have the architect there sitting with me, and we help kind of formulate, are we going to master plan for you, or how are you feeling about your project?
That's right. I think that's probably one of the most I think aha moments that we see clients have, right? It's this idea that they have this long wish list and trying to see what is possible with this wish list. Is it can I do it all at once? Is it something that maybe I need to master plan and we come out of this with multiple phases? What's great about that is knowing that early on. And that's the real power of it all, because of course, as we figure out these big picture moves and start getting some general cost information, so we can start figuring out if these two things are in balance, the next step is, of course, to fill in the blanks, get into those details. And that's where, again, the team always begins with your design build consultant, then your architect, then your interior design team come on board. And this is when now this is all that fun stuff you see on TV, right? You get these wonderful palettes, these mood boards, you get to go on shopping trips, you get to go and finally pick out the things that are going to be in that space. And that's what the client sees. On the internal side for us, interior design plays a critical role as well. They're in lockstep with estimation, right? They're the ones who are saying, hey, here's what the clients are asking for. Here's what things are, here's where, how long things are taking. They're a critical piece of information for us internally to make sure that we're keeping up to speed on any changes that may affect what our clients are interested in. And we need to source, for example, custom tile, right? Custom tile is very popular, and making sure we understand what are the true delivery times for that, or what are these lead times, and is our supplier in Morocco, are they okay? Can they get us the stuff that we need? Again, just a critical piece of our process. The fun part, I'm sure, and Lynn can speak to this a little bit, is now you get to see, before when we're working in conceptual design, we're working with lines, right? It's just lines, it's space, we're looking at space. Now it's almost like we start painting the canvas a little bit, right? You get to start seeing it come to life. How fun was that process for you?
Oh, that was the most exciting process. Yeah, because dialing in the details, you're getting to meet the interior designer, and you're flipping up the elevations. Like we say, you can picture in our case, it was the kitchen. You can picture all of your cabinetry and how it's going to look, and start imagining what's going to go in those drawers, and choosing your tile, like I said, and working with the interior designer on your palette.
Yeah. Very fun. And of course, as we're putting together this product selection worksheet, again, this document that again roots us all in the reality of what is this project, what is going to become your dream home. That's where, again, our estimation department, again, it's a critical piece of our process. You'll see there Pete Zambrano, who's one of our estimators. I love this quote. He says accurate cost information is critical in understanding the full scope of a construction project. I enjoy being a part of such an important step in the process and take great pride in helping our teams find cost-efficient solutions for our clients. That is something that I think a lot of clients are curious about. What if my idea is more than I want to spend? How can you get me there? And I think this is that important piece. And either one of any of you, I'm sure, has plenty of experience to speak on this. But there are many times where clients are faced with an opportunity there to maybe reimagine this in a way that could be more cost efficient.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. I think, as it applies to the current environment, what I love, coming from a strictly architecture background, the ability to have an estimator there that's giving you input on the design is just huge, right there live with you while you're designing. And I think specific to the conditions we're in today, I mentioned earlier when we've got all the plans done, we've submitted to the city or the county, and we're seeing months. We can go through and finalize interior design and everything during that time, but really we're waiting for someone else. And I've had clients in this period, we're all reading the newspaper, watching the news, hearing interest rates going up, inflation going up. And so I'm getting the calls, Bill, I'm worried. Can I still afford this? Right? What can I do? And so what we're doing now is during that time, periodically, okay, let's check. We're going to go back, circle back around with some of our subs, material suppliers. If maybe they've given us an idea if we're seeing price increases or not, but kind of getting a checkpoint to say, because we can still then kind of reevaluate, if the price of your project is starting to get more expensive because of price volatility and interest rates. I've had some clients say, well, let's look at it. Maybe I'll phase out these 2 bathrooms. Go ahead and let's do the master suite addition, the kitchen, add on to the living room, but maybe the powder bath and the other bathroom, we're just going to wait for now because of that. And because that just makes me feel better, right? We're going to stay flexible with people and go through that whole process with you. We're not just going to leave you alone and let you figure it out, but we have the information that you need to help make those decisions and the expertise to help guide you with those decisions as well. So we're able to use the cost estimating to really get a grip, one, on what does it really mean? Is it really, does a 300% increase in the price of lumber increase the price of my project 300%? No way. Does it increase it 3%, 5%? Well, it depends how much framing you have in your project. On a new home, maybe, but on a remodel where we don't have a lot of framing, that what you're reading in the paper may not have the effect that you think it's going to have on your project. And we want to make sure that you have that comfort level.
Yeah, that's a good
I would also say that, a really good estimation department has been, or having one has been one of the unsung heroes of the pandemic and all this, because, this idea of what's going on with price volatility, what's going on with supply chain. Again, if you sit in a reactive spot, you're the victim of it. Estimators are front and center, calling around all over the United States, talking to different dealers. They say that we can get this in 6 weeks. You say 4. Can I get it here? They say the lumber's this price. It's having a estimation department that is proactive, reaching out ahead and saying, what are the best deals out here, and when can I get this stuff? And doing that kind of jockeying, that has really helped us during volatile times by them having a really kind of proactive hand in it.
No, absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the idea of being proactive. I know that you guys just went to a pretty big design build forum. Some of the top design build firms in the nation got together. We were very fortunate to be a part of that group. It was, I'm sure, comforting to hear that we're not the only ones experiencing everything that we've gone through. The shared pain was palpable, but also some of the solutions that came out of that, of opportunities there for improvement, and to, again, be more proactive. And this concept of pre-contract ordering is something that I think has been helpful in terms of moving projects forward.
So I can say something about that.
Yeah.
Sure.
So if I were going to be speaking with you and you've got an 8-month project sitting out there in front of you, and right now, one of the challenges that we've talked about with regard to lead times is appliances. So, and as Bill had said, a lot of those companies are saying, oh, it's 12 months. So even though we aren't quite at the construction contract signing stage, we are going to probably come and proactively troubleshoot with you and say, hey, would you like to go ahead and order some of these appliances now? We're going to want to strategize, so then when we're getting closer to the end of the project, you're going to actually have appliances ready to order. And it's not just with them, is, we'll be looking at all of your selections across the board, but that seems to be the biggest one to date.
Yeah, and certainly with appliances, the great thing about that's definitely one way for us to sort of anticipate and be proactive, ordering early for some of these appliances. There's also, in some cases, keeping that existing suite of appliances in place until we have your new appliances ready to go that we can then install as well. Because really, what we're trying to achieve is that seamless transition and experience from design to construction. That is what all this hard work up front is for. We joke around that if we do all of the hard work up front, then once you get to construction, it's strictly execution. Obviously, there's a lot more to construction than just execution, because really what it comes down to is also the client experience. That's what we're, from the very beginning when we talked about, we are in a people business. We also happen to build remarkable things. Our focus is always the client. And I love this quote by Troy Coates. Troy Coates is, for all of you out there who may not know, Troy Coates is one of our most senior project managers. He oversees construction. He's been with us 28 years, Bill, something like that?
I think 28.
28 years, an incredible person, just lovely. And I just love this quote. He says, one of the most rewarding parts of my job is seeing how happy clients are with the result of our collaboration. The client relationship is as important as the quality of the product. And, I think for us, it just speaks volumes, right? We know that if we can bring the design to the table. We know that we can build you a beautiful thing, but our nugget, what we're aiming for at the end of this whole thing is that you are happy with it. That not only do you get to live in this beautiful space, but that you're also quite happy and with the experience as well. Lynn, I love talking to you about this because in this particular slide, for all of you guys who may not know, we happen to be at Lynn's house. We had our Friends of Hartman Baldwin party back when we were able to have in-person parties. We hope to do this year and get together with our clients again and say thank you for their continued trust. But it's that relationship that goes beyond just the construction, right? It's beyond the project.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I think back to those weekly construction meetings and just laughing, sitting around and really feeling like this is a group of friends. That's how I truly felt. So
that's great. Yeah, we have some wonderful photos. We have some wonderful photos of you and your entire team. It's for all of you out there who are interested in learning more about Lynn's project, the Miramonte Residence. I highly encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and check it out. It's really a fun watch. Well, I think we've reached sort of the end of this particular topic, and I know that there's a lot of curiosity out there. There are very specific questions that people have regarding the topic. So if anybody is out there and are interested in posting some questions, please go ahead and do so in the chat. We'd love to answer your questions and let you know what we know and share that with you. Let's see, let me ask Christina and see if she has.
Can I chime in with something, Carla, while we're waiting?
Absolutely, go for it.
one of the things I want to harken back to what you said about the design build conference we went to, and we are so client centric. I mean, we're a group of passionate people that are about the art and people and the experience of it. But one of the things we realized that when we were with all those firms is it's the companies that had a phenomenal process and were a process mindset were the ones who've done best during this pandemic. So all the issues we're talking about, if you have the mindset of a company that's run by a great process, that is, how do you apply the process to this problem? And the companies that did the best job were the ones who had great cultures, but also have a great process that they just tuned that experience and that mental model and said, how does that fit now with all these issues? They're the companies that did the best. We were obviously in that group of that kind of got through it with the best results.
Yeah, no, well said. I think that's something, again, I'm a little biased. Like I said, I've been with Hartman Baldwin for a number of years, but that's something that I think is so rewarding about what we do. It's the approach to our work. It's working smartly, trying to make sure we understand and anticipate not just our clients' needs, but what's out there. What is really truly going to affect us and our clients in this experience? I wanted to bring up one particular question that we got, and it's a good one. I think that especially now when people ask, is now a good time to remodel? One of the questions that I often get is, well, what type of work are you guys, do you guys take on? What's a typical Hartman Baldwin project for you? Lynn, would you like to maybe answer that?
Typical Hartman Baldwin project. Well, I would say that typically what I'm going out there for right now is going to be kitchens, master bathrooms, suites, but really as well, the joke is, home is where the makeshift office is. And so we're seeing a lot of, office work as well, and indoor outdoor living. So, it could be just a range, really. People are just wanting to sit and enjoy their home.
That's right. Yeah. And certainly, I know for the folks that I'm talking to as well, like I mentioned, because now everyone's competing for so much space. And even though things are opening up, we're finding that more and more folks are wanting to expand their home and exploring things like second story additions, guest houses. I think some of you out there may be contemplating, you guys may have heard of the term ADU. More specifically, that's guest houses, casitas, things like that. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about those and how we approach those projects, again, I'd encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and take a look at some of the projects that we've done and how those have kind of worked out in terms of the different scale of projects that you can do in terms of ADUs and how one of them could be a good fit for your family. One other question that it did show up here that I think is an important one is how did we keep everyone sort of motivated and excited about the work during this whole time? I'd love Bill Baldwin to talk about this because this was fun.
It was a challenge. I think everybody went through challenges on this front because we were remoted for quite some time. We did a daily Zoom meeting where everybody in the company got together and we talked about recipes and food and movies and whatever it was, that all the kind of small detail things that we had that made us a great culture. And I've always said that if you can get a great group of people together in lockstep, you can conquer the world. And so we did everything we could to try to keep that pulse alive during the process. We're now finally all back, so that tempo has come way up. Yeah. But yeah, in challenging times, we did as much as we could with both our team and our clients to try to make as much connection as we could. But it was certainly, for such a culture-first company, it was one of the challenges that was the trickiest to kind of navigate during that process.
I agree, but I, as one of the many that participated in those Zooms, was so grateful to have that time. It was we're not a huge group, but we're a really tight knit group, so it was a little difficult. It was a little difficult not to see each other at the, just passing each other by in the halls, talking about each other's projects. Which one are you working on? And it's very common for us to go out and visit each other's work as well. So that was a little bit challenging, but very excited that we're all now back in the office, excited to start going into clients' homes and sharing our work with you. So I'd like for all of you who may be interested in potentially renovating, remodeling, building a custom home, if you are ready, feel free to let us know, give us a call or send us an email. We'd love to have spend some time with you, certainly think through your thoughts and see if maybe we're a good fit to work together. And the last plug for the YouTube channel. Feel free to go by, check out. We've got a lot of stuff there for you. On behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your evening with us. And from all of us here at Hartman Baldwin, have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a great evening.
Thanks, guys.